Hi there, and thanks for listening. My name is Daniel Kringer, and this is the SkanFest podcast, an interview series for the Skaneateles Festival, a summer concert series based in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. In these talks, we are getting to know our visiting artists who travel the world making music at the top of their field, hailed by the Strad for playing with tremendous heart and beauty. The Ivalas Quartet is with us for a week of concerts in Skaneateles and the surrounding area. I'm happy to have violinist Ruben Cabede, violinist Tiani Butts, violist Marcus Stevenson, and cellist Pedro Sanchez with me to talk today. Thank you very much for making time, guys.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So we're going to get to quartet stuff in a bit, but I wonder if first each of you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit individually about your background and how you got into music. Whoever wants to take the initiative.
Sure, I can start us off.
Fantastic.
I'm Ruben. I'm the first violinist of the group. I started playing the instrument when I was about 5 years old. My older brother played, and so I grew up hearing him, and that was very inspiring for me. So I was like, oh, I want to do that. So yeah, I started then, and I got really passionate about it probably around my high school years, and I was like, oh wow, maybe I can like actually do this. Like maybe I can make a career out of it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, fantastic.
I will go next since we're going in quartet order.
I love that. That's automatic.
I'm Tiani. I'm the second violinist of the group. Similar to Ruben, I grew up with some musicians in the family, so I'm the youngest of four, and my older sisters played cello and viola. And so I started in grade school, so it was about like fourth or fifth grade, and no one had picked up the violin yet, so I picked that bad boy up, and it's been love ever since. I also think I got pretty serious about the violin around high school. I thought it was really great in my little town in Virginia, and then I got to college and realized people were really good. So It took some work, but I have been loving it for a very long time. So.
Great.
Yes, my name is Marcus, and I'm originally from New Jersey. And I started playing the viola when I was around 5 years old. I think I started in school, and I assume it was one of those situations where they had like a million people playing violin, so they asked me to try viola. But I really liked it because I think it's really like unique and special. And I stuck with it because when I was younger, I was always a big fan of the show Little Einsteins,
Okay.
where they like go on fun adventures like around classical music and arts, and it was really cool, and I thought it would be fun to go on my own adventures, musical adventures. It would be
So
fun.
cute.
That's fantastic. Okay.
And my name is Pedro. I should preface this by saying that I am from Venezuela.
Okay.
And since a very early age, I was very much into music. My first instrument was the cuatro, which is a Venezuelan instrument. It's very similar to the ukulele, but a little bit bigger. And then my parents took me to a concert. There is a social program in Venezuela called El Sistema, which, the point is to like offer music education for everybody, regardless of class. And the cool thing about it is that like it's usually a lot of young people. So my parents took me to a concert. I saw it, and they were moving so much. The orchestra looked like the ocean from where I was sitting. And I fell in love with it, and I told my parents that's what I want to do. So I started taking cello lessons, and then when I was in my last year of high school, I was like, I want to do music, and I would like to go to the United States to study music. So I did some auditions, and I ended up coming here for my senior year of high school.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Second question. Are there musicians or maybe figures in general that inspire you, either with your music making or maybe just in life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can speak for all of us when I say the Takács Quartet. We studied with them for a little while in Colorado, and also the Juilliard Quartet. We just finished up our residency there. So amazing mentors for us during our time. And if I'm going to pick a violinist, I would say Augustin Hadalick.
Okay.
Amazing player. Like always, when I've seen him play live, that's like the goal. That's like, I hear it, I'm
Sure.
like, yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Well, I'm largely inspired by a lot of my like colleagues and my peers, especially these three.
Aw.
Great answer.
Yeah. Yes, I think they always inspire me to do what I do with lots of passion and with love and all those things. So.
Fantastic.
I mean, I guess I could say it's maybe silly, but I feel like growing up, my main teacher back in Venezuela was a big inspiration for me, just because I feel like through him, I really learned that like teaching, which is something that we get to do often with a quartet and individually, has more to do sometimes with psychology and more with like coaching and mentoring rather than like making sure that, you know, music, you know, is perfect, or that you're like, you know, performing like an athlete. It's a little bit more about the mental side of inspiring somebody to be better as a person.
Yeah, it's definitely, I resonate with that. It's that kind of teaching and mentoring. It just like helps mold or shape like the entire person, and not just, this is how to be perfect on the instrument and how to make it in the music world. But it's like, there's a bigger reason why people are so passionate about the arts, being in the arts. And I would say you guys actually got to meet my teacher. I spent a lot of years with back home in Virginia, and he is a very dynamic person, and he taught me a lot about just how to put a lot of emotion into what I'm doing, and to just find that emotion and kind of a lot of those kinds of things. And also Michelle Obama.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Great. Cool. So what do you read? If you want to pick like one thing, if any of you guys reading anything that you like, one book, one author, what do you got?
We've been on the road now for a couple weeks.
Sure.
By the time we're done here, we'll be back in New York, and it'll be 3 weeks. On this trip, I haven't read a whole... I know Tiani's reading a lot,
Okay.
but if I had to pick just a genre that I love, I would say science fiction.
Okay.
Fantasy as well,
Nice.
but I would say top science fiction book, probably Dune.
Great. Good choice. Yeah.
Yeah, I have been reading a lot on this trip. I'm on my third book right now. Usually the books that I get the quickest, I work my way through the quickest are the really cheesy rom-com kind of books that are just really cute and fun to read. But right now I'm reading a book called The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. And it's a little bit of a thriller kind of, suspense. The person you think is a good person like might not be, and then the person you think you should be looking out for it's a lot of twists and turns, and it's really great.
Fantastic.
So all over the place, but
Cool.
I'm gonna have to go with Latin American literature, just because it really brings me back home. There is this book that I love called Doña Bárbara by Venezuelan author Rómulo Gallegos. But let's see, in just world literature, I grew up reading Lord of the Rings. So that, for all the merit that Tolkien has, just creating a whole new world out of nowhere. But I just started a book called The Wager, and I don't really know how it's going to go because I just started it. But
It's good. I finished it a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
Nice.
good. David Grant, fantastic.
That's right.
Author, yeah. And Marcus?
I'm a bit more of an audiobook person.
Fantastic.
But I like a lot of Gothic literature, like kind of like the dark with lots of
like the Mary Shelley and...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've reread Frankenstein, or re-listened to. I like a good 3 or 4 times in the past couple of years.
That's a lot of listening.
Yeah,
Right?
it's like
Not
really
abridged.
fun. Yeah, but it's really fun to come back to it with a different perspective every time.
Oh,
So,
cool. Fantastic.
yeah.
Cool. What do you guys listen to? If there's anything that you like in or out of your genre,
Right.
too,
Well, amongst other things, I'm a big fan of K-pop.
Cool.
Yes, so
He is.
yes, lots of, and I especially love like dance tracks, like things that have lots of high energy.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Marcus is definitely a high energy. Like, you should see him dancing. Oh, he can move.
We can make it happen.
It's,
Oh, yes.
it's really fun. I listen to a lot of. I actually listen to a bit of like of gospel music, Christian music, but like the fun, like from my what I grew up in and my culture, like Black gospel music is actually really it's really interesting to listen to at this stage in my life, because those kinds of musicians, they grow up in the church, and you kind of you learn music in the it's not what we do, which is very meticulous studying of music, but it's actually really special and very good stuff. So a lot of that. I also love neo soul, so a lot of Anthony Hamilton, Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, the old kind of, well, I guess like my parents' generation kind of music. So good stuff, fun stuff.
I've been listening to a lot of jazz recently. Big Thelonious Monk fan. Some of the classic guys. So that's
Cool.
I like to listen to Afro-Venezuelan music or Afro-Caribbean, especially like the traditional drum music in Venezuela. I just like sometimes find big albums on YouTube and just put them in there, just because it's the kind of sound that they create is just something that I can't usually find in other genres. But let's see. I mean, we listen to a lot of things in our road trips.
Yeah, we do.
Sometimes I go with just like Latin American vibes, just kind of like salsa and a little bit of reggaeton. But sometimes we go with, I don't know, Tiani will or Marcus will put a playlist.
Yeah, some fun. Yeah,
Some musical theater.
Musical
I
theater.
love to sing
A lot
along,
of
Disney tunes.
Disney tunes.
Sing-alongs going?
musicals. Like
Yes.
we will. Yeah, Ruben doesn't really scream to the top of his lungs as much as the rest of us, but it's fun.
Cool. Okay, we're going to start kind of pivoting into quartet stuff. But I'd like to hear you guys talk a bit about, I guess, what motivates you to make music such a prominent part of your life. You know, really, what does music mean to you? Whoever wants to start first.
Well, I think the most important thing to me is just the expression that you can have, especially in chamber music, when we make music together, and the expression that you can get across to the audience. So I think I've been thinking of it a lot more as an experience as a whole that everyone's involved in. And I think that's, for me, the most important thing is just bringing the best music we can and the most authentic music we can to our audiences.
Yeah, there's a lot of storytelling involved in music making and creating art. And so we do spend a lot of time just getting on the same page of like what we're trying to say. Because when the four of us are really in sync with what emotions and what message, what story we're trying to get out there, it can be really powerful. And we just want to bring the audience into our world for an hour and a half, and kind of just explore some stuff without even talking. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think coming from the background I talked earlier, I mean, being in Venezuela, being a part of El Sistema growing up, I feel like it was very early an idea in my head that music was directly related to social wellness, or just it's a vital part of a community. And I think just making sure that it's something that we also do with the quartet. We make sure that we reach out to younger generations, that we spend a lot of time with kids, because it's a vehicle for everybody to also practice, you know, life's most important values like respect, collaboration, discipline, and that works for everybody, regardless whether you want to do music as a career or not. Like, it will like help you forever. And also as a group, I feel like we sometimes have seen how our music can impact communities in a bigger way. I remember I took a class when I was in my undergrad titled Music of Healing and Death. And it's just, I got to see how music just goes from, it's like a vital element in each culture, and it's used in moments where there is big tension from one reason or to another reason. For example, when COVID was a thing, you know, back into the 2020s.
It was.
Yeah. We were doing a lot of work behind the scenes. We weren't playing so many concerts and stuff, but putting material on the internet, and we saw a big reception to that because people needed that type of I don't know, catharsis, to listen to something that made them feel like an emotion. So that is also something that we like to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page with Pedro, especially bringing people comfort or happiness in a time when they really need it. I feel that like my mission just as a person, or what I want to get in life, is to be happy for myself, but then also to make other people happy. And if I can take them to a happier place, even for just that one concert, it feels like it's a good feeling.
Fantastic. So let's hear the origin story. How did the quartet get together?
Take it away.
So the quartet started in its very first iteration. My teacher at the University of Michigan, it was at a summer festival. She put some people together, and we enjoyed playing together. It wasn't, that was like very, very early days. So then the violist, the other violinist, and myself grabbed Pedro, and that was when the quartet actually started.
Okay.
At the University of Michigan. I think Pedro and I met playing soccer. And I was like, hey, you want to play some quartets? You want to read some quartets? And he hopefully doesn't regret it. I don't know. He got himself into good times.
I think it's too late now.
Yeah,
right?
now he's too far in. So yeah, we just grabbed and played together, and we were like, oh, this is fun. This is a good time. And we also, one of the things we realized was like, there aren't any quartets that look like us. You know, like I remember when I was a kid, I had a quartet come in and play in my elementary school, and that was very inspiring, but you know, it wasn't reflective of the community and what people looked like in that particular school.
Sure.
And I think that was something that we realized we all shared, and that's kind of like that's been something going forward now with the quartet, where, you know, it's so important to see someone that looks like you playing, or that speaks like you. And Pedro's first language is Spanish. So that has always been a really big part of the quartet. So we started at Michigan. Then we went to study with the Takács Quartet in Colorado. And then during COVID, Tiani joined us. And so she's been in now going on 4 years. And
was that in Colorado?
That was in Colorado during COVID. The first time we
Gotcha.
played together, we all had masks on. We were kind of spread out, and it was a weird thing.
Yeah, so I also went to the University of Michigan, but just after Ruben and Pedro had left is when I started there. And so this was prime COVID time. I had just had my graduation in my living room, my apartment living room on YouTube.
Yep,
had my graduation, and literally the next day I flew to Colorado to start with the guys. So it was something else, but
cool.
Good move.
It was very funny playing with masks for like a couple months together. And then the first time we took them off and played, we all started laughing
They
like
hadn't
30,
seen my face
20
before.
seconds
Yeah.
later.
Very surreal experience, I'm sure. Yeah.
So that was great, and you know, it's been awesome having Tiani in the group. And then we went to Juilliard, and so we moved to New York, and Marcus joined us. It's been almost a year now. September 8th.
September 8th is the anniversary.
Will be a year.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, Marcus, I have a question specifically for you, and I'm sure you get it a lot. I was looking on your website. And that viola you're holding doesn't look like what I'm used to violas looking like.
Yes.
So can you explain, I'm sure there's some sort of like historical context for it. What's the deal with the shape of that instrument?
Yes. So the viola is made by a maker named Hiroshi Izuka, who's based in Philadelphia. And all of his instruments are inspired by like the shape of viola da gamba or viola d'amore, the Baroque instrument.
Yeah.
And I think it gives it some sonic advantages of like kind of having like a deeper and warmer tone.
Interesting.
Especially because like the base of the instrument is a lot wider than normal, and then the top, the shoulders are a bit narrower, and that also makes it a little bit easier to like shift and get around the instrument.
Sure.
Yeah, so it definitely has some technical advantages, but I really like all of his instruments that he makes. Yeah, they tend to have that shape, and they all.
Does he do a violin, viola, cello, or is it more higher instruments? Or?
He mostly does violas, and I know he has some violins.
Okay,
I don't know about cello though.
So you talked a little bit about early days from your first gigs. I'm just curious to know if there's anything else you remember. Like you mentioned your first performances being all in masks. Were there any other sort of like interesting first performances or anything like that? Or even more recently after you had new people join the group, you know?
Maybe my favorite thing back in the day when we started the group was that we got to travel in a car, you know, all together and do like little, you know.
Road trips are still really fun.
They are still really fun.
One of the things we always do, because usually we're in the U.S. We were just in Canada.
Yeah.
But when we're driving around in the States and we see like a town called Rome or Milan or something like that, we're like international tour.
Paris,
like
Texas.
how do we make it from Moscow to Milan so fast? So that we always like to joke about that.
So great. Yeah. So you're a relatively young group, and I want to kind of go down that vein a little further. I'm curious to know if you have experienced any like crucial moments in your development. Now that again you're talking about things feeling more professional, a little more serious. If you're thinking about this vocation or wanting to connect with people and whatnot, you're traveling more and more, performing more and more. So any like crucial moments or any moments of difficulty you've experienced as a group?
I think crucial moments for the group definitely have been the different residencies that we have attended. Like when we started studying under the Takács Quartet, that changed the way in which we saw music, that changed the way in which we like understood things. And the same applies to when we started working with the Juilliard Quartet. And I would say that within those residencies, they also come challenges. I mean, like every time that you move from, I don't know, like one apartment to a new apartment is a little bit difficult. We'll just imagine moving from like Ann Arbor to like Boulder, Colorado, and then from Boulder to New York City. That's like almost complete opposites, you know. In one you have beautiful, gorgeous mountains, and the other one you have like skyscrapers. And yeah, and all the, you know, differences when it comes to the community, but those are things that we have learned to navigate, and if anything, it makes us stronger to have this diversity of experiences. You know, like sometimes that helps you in a piece. Sometimes you want to play like as peaceful and gorgeous as sunset in the mountains, and sometimes you want to play music that sounds more hectic, like you're like running and trying to catch the next subway, you know, in the system in New York City. So it all helps.
Yeah, great. Cool. Next question. Anybody who feels they want to take it. What do you get out of playing in a quartet versus playing solo or in other ensembles? What draws you to this format?
Well, I really like the different types of sounds that each of the different instruments can get, because I always liked the viola, but of course, you know, it doesn't always have like the same darkness or deepness as like the cello. And I think it's really cool when we're able to create something new together. And then like the sparkliness of the violin, like all of those different types of feelings and textures, I think is really great. And you can't always get that with just yourself.
I think the string quartet repertoire trumps like any
It's the best.
orchestra repertoire or solo. There's a lot of quartets out there, a lot of quartet music out there, and I feel like we're really lucky to be able to do this for a living. There's a lot of we get all the say in the world of what we want to sound like, what we want to do. When you play in a big orchestra, you can't really stand out too much because you might get fired. But we like to take advantage of that, and I think that's what makes quartets stand out from one another is the way that you are interpreting something on any given day. So we're very lucky.
Yeah. Your thoughts?
I don't know. I feel like at least growing up, practicing wasn't my personal favorite. I feel like I'm a very social person. I like communicating and exchanging ideas, and I think that I'm very lucky to be in the quartet because we spend hours and hours rehearsing with each other, and I'd rather be with my friends in a room, rehearsing and talking about what Mozart might have meant by a certain writing, or Eleanor Alberga, what is this music about? And I think those conversations are fun, and I'm very thankful that I have this little family of 4 where I get to spend that creative time rather than by myself.
Great. Cool. So Ruben, you kind of referred a little bit to this earlier, but I want to give you guys the opportunity to talk about it a little bit more. Your mission statement. You want to expand on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest things for us is including BIPOC and underrepresented composers we try to do that in all of our concerts. And one of the most, this might address one of your later questions as well, but I'll just put them together.
Go for it.
One of the best ways of doing that, we believe, is to play pieces by underrepresented composers alongside the pieces that are already established in the canon. So, we'll play Beethoven with Alvin Singleton, who's a Brooklyn-based composer, and Mendelssohn, and things like that. And I think when you introduce pieces to people in that way, often after the concert, they'll come and they'll say, wow, that Singleton's amazing. I'd never heard that before. That's great. And that way, it gets people to the concert. Of course, we love playing Beethoven as well.
Sure.
And it shows that a lot of these works can, especially if you have a common theme throughout the program, a lot of these works can really stand with the greats. And, it's, I think that has been one of the most effective ways we've found to program concerts and to hopefully change the canon, include more works like this alongside the war horses.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm wondering if we can, based on that, zoom in a little bit on a specific experience you guys had recently. I want to talk about your recording of Warmth from Other Suns by Carlos Simon. So can you just talk about the process that kind of led you guys up to working with him and recording that and getting it on a label, all that sort of stuff? Yeah,
sure. So that was a little bit of a pandemic project.
Okay.
Pandemic.
So we were very fortunate that he wanted a recording of that done. Sure. And I don't remember who reached out to us exactly. Maybe it was Laura Downs, great, fantastic pianist.
Yep.
And so we recorded that on her label. And it was great because it was during the pandemic. We didn't have a whole lot of concerts. We were doing some virtual things, but we were able to really focus in on that and record that. And we worked with him a little bit, played for him over Zoom. So that there were some things that he could give us feedback on, and it's always fun to work with the composer because sometimes they'll hear something and they're like, oh, that's not quite right. Why don't we try this? Other times they'll really know what they want, and they're like, no, try it, play exactly what's on the page.
Do you ever find yourselves in a position where you want to give feedback in reverse in a collaboration
I
like that?
think there are times when we have done that for sure, and composers are usually open to that type of thing. It's really nice to work with living composers. Yeah. We can't ask Beethoven, why did you do that?
Interesting, yeah.
So that was a great project for us during that time. And I don't know if you have anything to add, Pedro, about that.
I agree with you. It's that collaboration is really fun because you get to also not only get inside their music, but a little bit in their heads. Like, what was the motivation behind this project, behind this composition? And with that specific piece, he got inspired by the book with the same name by Isabel Wilkerson. And he basically tells a story from a musical perspective. And it's a wonderful piece, and we feel very deeply every time we perform it, because it also it also aligns with our mission of bringing that part of history from the perspective of people of color to life today, so that there is a wide range of perspectives that different people from an audience can perceive, not just like like the white composers from Europe from hundreds of years ago, or the stories they were thinking about.
Sure, yeah.
And I just want to add, because this recording project was just right before my time in the group, but it's really special to be able to have that opportunity to get music by these living composers, by these underrepresented composers out there on these platforms. There are dozens, hundreds of recordings of Mozart quartets and Beethoven quartets. Yeah. And when you look up the Carlos Simon, or you look up the Alberga, or you look up the Alvin Singletons, there aren't that many. Yeah. And so I actually don't know if I mentioned this to the guys, but I have a friend back in Boston who actually plays for the Boston Symphony, and she reached out to me because she's playing with 3 others, I think, also from the symphony, working on the Warmth from Other Suns, and found the Ivalas Quartet recording and wanted to ask about, just trying to get in my head, our heads, like what we've come up with and how we've approached it, just so they could have a better or a different, another understanding of the piece. And so it's really special to be able to start that trend and keep that, you grow that trend and get those recordings out there. So
totally
great
cool.
stuff.
Cool. So I'm wondering if you guys would mind spending some time talking about what you're doing here at the festival.
Yes.
Lots.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of really fun community events. Just the other day, we were at Golisano Children's Hospital, and we had a really fun interactive program where they got to kind of create a story based on the music that they were hearing and feeling. Yeah, we had a story. We played a Mozart quartet, and we kind of created a story about bears waking up from hibernation and dancing and doing all sorts of fun
spring,
stuff.
So
yeah, cool.
Yeah, it was so great to see the creativity and imagination of people listening. And I think later today we're participating in a class led by Aaron Wunsch, the artistic director. Yep. And we're playing the Simon in the class, actually, and the class is based on themes of music and home. So exploring ideas of dislocation and finding home and the emotions that come with that in the journey. So it will be very meaningful. And yes, and it's really just fun to be able to see different parts of Skaneateles and the area. It's a really lovely place to be, and the people are also lovely, and it's great to connect with them.
Sure. We're going to connect to that later in the week. There's more stuff doing. I'm just quick interjection, though. Curious to know what you guys like about doing outreach like this, because I know you've done a lot of it, educational initiatives. Somebody want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's a big part of our mission is to get there are different elements of to our outreach component. I think maybe my favorite one is reaching out to the youth, because these are the people that are going to be the citizens of the future. And like I said earlier, inculcating these values very early on is helpful to just have a better society in the future. So we really enjoy doing that, and we have a series of presentations that we have ready for any time a school wants to bring us for either a day of teaching or a week of teaching.
Sure.
So that is what we do when it comes to the young generations. We want them to see people that look like them. So in New York City, it's very helpful and good, because basically most of the schools that we go to have a huge percentage of like Spanish population. Very often we'll show up to a school and they'll say, we have these kids that just got from Venezuela 2 weeks ago.
Wow. Yeah.
And they don't speak English. So if you could do this presentation in English and Spanish, that would be awesome. And afterwards, we get these kids to come up and they're very excited speaking to me because they find like, whoa, this guy comes from where I come from. And we can have a conversation and be like, yeah, I lived in your city and like now I'm here doing this thing. That's very inspiration to us. But we also have experiences playing in other places, like in hospitals, in veterans' homes.
I think definitely some of my favorite experiences have been playing in veterans' homes, places like that. It's great. I remember one time we were playing a Mendelssohn quartet there, and there's a moment in the A minor quartet where in the last movement there's like all these first violin cadenzas, and in the middle of one of the cadenzas, this guy's just like, yeah. And I was like, that's awesome. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Because we now have this museum culture of classical music. I think it kind of happened after Beethoven, where people sit and no one makes any noise and they listen. And I think in some ways that can be very nice. But in other ways, it isn't necessarily what was happening, when Mozart and Haydn were playing chamber music. I think a lot of the time people, at least I think there's some anecdotal evidence that people were not sitting there totally silently between everything.
Oh, yeah. Makes me think of there were instances of audiences requesting to hear a movement again
right.
or only asking for a particular movement.
Right.
Which is a little more shady, but, a little more picky.
I don't want to hear the minuet.
That's right.
Get that over with.
But some of those experiences have really been my favorite because you can tell that people are hungry for the music, and sometimes they've maybe never heard a Mendelssohn quartet, but they hear it and they're like, whoa, this is awesome, this is great.
And we don't want to silence anybody. If anything, we welcome the interaction. So if anybody, like if there are, for example, a family and some kids feel like dancing in a piece, go for it. If you feel like yelling after a sick violin solo, go ahead and do it. Like that's only going to be exciting for us. We love concerts where we play Haydn and we hear them laughing because Haydn was the master of jokes. And just like that kind of interaction, really, like that's what we're trying to foster, because the future of not only string quartet and chamber music but classical music as a whole will definitely be more brighter if we find a way to integrate all these different communities so that we can grow our audiences. And the more, I don't know if elitist is the right word, but the more museum-like we make this, the less likely is that, people are going to be interested in a world where, you have a phone and you can like see something that makes you laugh or makes you like have like a very intense emotion in like the 5 or to 10 seconds that a reel lasts. You want to go there to a concert and just sit and just watch for like, it's kind of like a lot to ask. So we welcome that genuine burst of emotion. That's totally fine.
Cool.
In our concerts.
This will give us a good jumping off point. I was wondering if you guys might just talk about your program for later this week. I think it's Thursday. Is that right? Friday. Thank you very much. Friday.
There's a lot of stuff going on this week.
Things I should know.
Good.
So talk about the program.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember the correct order of the first half. So the first half will be, we're trying something out that will be really fun. It was Aaron's idea. Of the first half being played by candlelight. So the lights will be down, and most of what we're playing on the first half is very meditative, actually, or at least not fast, except for the middle movement of the Simon.
Sure. Yeah.
So we're opening the program with a piece by Goliov, an Argentinian composer. And so, we're opening with his piece Tenebrae. And he wrote the work after he went to the New York City Planetarium with his son. And he saw his son's awe when he saw Earth as a tiny blue dot on the planetarium ceiling. So it kind of has a feeling of, we like to think like floating in outer space, like you're orbiting the Earth. But you can listen to it a couple different ways, I think. You'll hear, so there's that serene feeling that's going on for a lot of the piece, but there's also turmoil and lots of commotion. And there's a middle section where I think things are zoomed in. The other thing that he was kind of thinking about when he wrote the piece was violence in the Middle East. So I guess in that way, it's also topical. Because he went, I think, in the early 2000s and saw a renewed bout of violence there. And so you'll hear some of that in the piece as well. And then it kind of, at the end, it goes back to this serene, floating feeling, and it's like a prayer. So it's, when I play the piece, I always think, like, no matter what's going on Earth, like, it's going to be here long after we are. So that's a really, really beautiful piece, and it's meditative for me to play it, probably all of us. The second piece on the program, I believe, is the Simon. So that's the piece that we've recorded, and as Pedro was saying earlier, it's based on Isabel Wilkerson's book, Warmth from Other Suns, or Warmth of Other Suns. So that follows 3 African-American families who migrate from the south to the north during the Great Migration. And
that piece is separated in 3 movements. The first movement, you can feel the anxiety of people who don't feel completely comfortable where they're at. So you can feel tension. Not so much, it's calm, but there is something underneath that feels uncomfortable. Then the second movement, titled Flight, is basically the journey, the running away. That running away is a topic that I feel like feels very, it's very relatable for many people in the world, and I mean, especially I have to say that being a Venezuelan that doesn't live in Venezuela today, at a moment where there is a massive exodus, where more than 8 million people are outside of the country, I feel like it relates to something that I'm currently feeling, as I'm sure it also is very relatable to the 3 of you, given that it's talking about the history of people here in the U.S. So that is a very intense movement, where he also uses the blues scale to also kind of like color it with folk elements of Black people in the U.S. And the last movement is titled Settled. It has more peace and less of that anxiety that existed in the first movement, although it is the same elements. It is a very interesting piece because it has a very open ending to it, where you get to maybe question whether people might feel like home after the journey, and what the commentary might be in even in today's society.
Cool.
I don't know if you guys have anything.
No, I think that's great. And then after that, we'll play the Cavatina movement from Beethoven's Opus 130.
Gotcha.
And that's one of my favorite quartet movements of all time. It's amazing, gorgeous movement, and it's Pedro's motioning up. So.
What does that mean?
Humanity deemed that to be, or whoever was putting together the Voyager record, the golden record that went up on the Voyager. Like Carl Sagan, I guess.
Yeah.
Included that as a representation of what humanity could do.
Okay, cool.
So it's floating out there somewhere. Maybe some ETs will find it.
It's up there.
I don't know. They'll figure out how to play it.
Hopefully the right kind of ETs.
Yeah.
This
Some
a
good
side
ones.
note. Yesterday they are introducing me to
The Alien franchise.
the Alien franchise.
Oh, like Sigourney Weaver.
I've never. So we watched Prometheus
man.
yesterday.
Last night.
Yeah, we were trying to decide whether to watch it in chronological order of release or chronological order of like when the movies take place.
So we're going with the movies take place, the timeline. So
But release would have been a stronger first entry.
Anyways,
The original Alien is great, but
back to music.
but I'm imagining them finding the cavatina, you know, and what they might do with it.
yeah, we love outer space. We have a whole program that's based on outer space.
Oh,
but
cool. Yeah.
Anyway,
Gotcha.
back to Friday's performance. So yeah, we'll play the Beethoven, the cavatina,
Yep.
and then after that, we're ending the first half with George Walker's Lyric, which is originally the second movement of his string quartet.
Sure.
First string quartet, not the second. And that piece is wonderful. He wrote it when he was about early 20s. He was just finishing up at the Curtis Institute. He was the first black composer to attend Curtis and also Eastman.
Oh, yeah.
And at the time, he wanted to have a career as a concert pianist, but that wasn't open to him. He was African American.
See, yeah.
So he composed a lot, and we're very lucky to have his works. He's also the first black composer to win a Pulitzer for a composition. So really, really beautiful work. It reminds me a lot of the Barber Adagio, which is written around the same time.
Sure.
And they were both Curtis people.
Ah, interesting.
But for some reason, the Walker is not played as often.
Some reason.
Well, you guys are sorting that out.
Yeah.
I feel like the Walker really deserves a place, like in high honors, in the string quartet rep.
Cool.
And hopefully something that we can achieve with more time and playing it more.
We're going to be playing the Schumann Piano Quintet,
Right.
and that
Fantastic
is
quintet.
we've been practicing that in our host family's home yesterday and today, and it's going to be a rock concert. Very
Yeah.
excited.
I love it.
And it's
Sharp
really...
contrast.
Sorry?
Oh, I was just going to say sharp contrast from the
Yeah.
meditative atmosphere.
Sure, yeah.
For sure. But it's also an honor and a privilege for us to be able to play with Aaron, somebody who,
Yeah.
you know, is faculty at
Right.
Juilliard where we were studying. And it's a great opportunity for us to make some, we usually don't play in quintets, you know, we're string quartet. So it's a wonderful opportunity to collaborate, but also a great opportunity to keep learning from him and to keep growing. And we're very much looking forward.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the recording?
Yeah, so pretty recently we had a residency at Caramore in upstate New York. And we worked together with a composer named Derek Skye to commission a piece called Deliverance. And we are looking forward to potentially having the opportunity to record the piece pretty soon.
Oh, fantastic. Cool.
It's a really great piece. It was quite challenging for us in the beginning. Ruben explains the tuning a bit better than I probably could, but do you want to explain the kind of...
So Derek combines Western tuning, so like Bach chorales, Palestrina, that type of quartet writing with Persian tuning. So there will be one pitch that is, it's called a choron, I think, and it is just, it's a quarter tone, but it's like, it's not quarter tone, like an experimental quarter tone, like you're gonna play it, like it's. I feel like what he does I'm not explaining it well. What he does so well is it's like melodic quarter tones.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not really a quarter tone. Would just define it's just like a sound that you specifically find in Persian tuning and Persian culture. So it's just a pitch. Yes.
Yeah.
And the really cool thing about this piece that we'll be recording later is that the first interval that you hear at the very beginning of it is that like is a note, you could call it a root, and then immediately after that the choron. So the first experience that the audience gets is like, whoa,
Why are you playing out of tune?
whoa, like like what world are we in?
Yeah.
And as the piece goes, the mixing of Western tuning with the choron gets more and more integrated to the point that the audience, if we do it well, the audience stops finding that the tension between the two tunings. And we think it's just a commentary on just society being able to integrate something new, something outside
totally
from it, and being able to make something beautiful and coming out from the other side.
Yeah.
Like towards the end of the piece, hopefully everybody can just like enjoy the colors that are definitely new, are definitely like not what you usually hear when you listen to a string quartet, but are as enjoyable, just as like meaningful and emotional. So we often like to think about that as a bigger commentary of what we want to do and our mission as a quartet, just in a bigger scale with all of the rep that exists and the way in which we program works.
Yeah, I think the piece also has a lot of percussive elements, and many of which we all do as a quartet, and we can also involve, when we perform, we involve the audience with as well, and it makes it feel very communal. I think it really speaks to that message. It brings people together in a special way.
Yeah, so that'll be really cool. Get a recording of that out. Stay tuned for that one.
Will do. Okay, cool. Any ideas on timing for that, or is it kind of you still have to record it and...
We're hoping to try and get started on some recording in the fall,
Okay,
but
cool.
yeah,
So
just
maybe
hopefully
next
for the year rolls around.
And we have concerts upcoming in New York City and in other states in the country for next season, and you can find those in our website.
Yeah.
We also have social media, Facebook, Instagram. Most things are very easy to find because we're very lucky. We're the only thing in the world that's called Ivalas.
Oh, you know what I was going to ask? I can't believe I didn't ask this.
I saw you skipped that question.
Yeah. Thanks for looking at my... Why didn't you say anything, Johnny? Where does the name come from? I need to know.
Well,
Thanks for mentioning. I'll have to see if I can cut that
it's
earlier.
a funny story. It's funny to us. Hopefully it's so funny to everybody. We were just hanging out one night in the must have been the very first couple of months that the quartet had been created. And we were hanging out in Ruben's basement in Ann Arbor. And our violist back in the day used to study at Bowling Green in Ohio. And he would come only to University of Michigan during the weekends so we could rehearse. So that's just to say that we weren't hanging out with him, and he was in a different state. So he texted us. It's like, guys, like my senior recital is this upcoming weekend, and my teacher is asking me to print a poster. We need a name for the quartet. And we were hanging out. I think we were playing some Mario Kart from Nintendo 64 in Ruben's basement. Yeah, vintage. So
there were a couple of other people outside the quartet there. I think, or maybe just one.
I can't remember.
Yeah, and the other violinist at the time.
Yeah, but so we were like, let's mess with him. Let's just tell him some random name and say, we're going to say that it's Nordic mythology. And... I don't know why we thought that would be a funny idea, but we forgot about it. And then we show up to the concert and there's this big poster that says Ivalas Quartet. So we were like, oh, this was serious. So the name's stuck. Did you say stuck?
Yeah.
The name stuck, and we thought it had a nice ring to it.
Yeah, it does.
And when we looked it up, there was nothing in the world that was called Ivalas. So we were like, this works, because anytime that we want to direct anybody to us, it's just going to be very easy to find. And it's also very nice because we hope that now it actually, after many years of the quartet existing, now it really means something to people.
Absolutely.
Like a word that before used to mean nothing, now you can associate it with like all the things that the quartet stands for.
Sure. Fantastic. Well, that ties things up very nicely. Ivalas Quartet is here for a week of outreach events and a concert on Friday, August 23rd. You can learn more about SkanFest events and buy tickets at skanfest.org. Thanks, guys, for coming by to talk.
Thanks for talking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
And we will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for listening.